the silent picture show before. No, we don't need
The third, Mark. The third,
I gotta go.
Yes.
February 3rd.
Yes,
Guys are live.
that's correct.
Thank you.
Want me to put the TV on?
Yeah, I don't even know how to do that. You do it from back there? Maybe she does it from back there?
There's a remote.
Mics are on.
It's okay.
It's the remote control switch. There it is.
Good evening. We're about to commence the public portion of our meeting, February 3rd, for the purpose of evaluating the performance of our town administrator, Dan Knappich, for the prior year, 2019. I suppose since this is a public meeting, we should begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This evaluation was completed by the various members of the Board of Selectmen, and the scores that resulted from that evaluation are aggregate scores, meaning they are the average in each category. Different selectmen have assigned different grades to the various categories, and then the averages were taken to come up with a composite score. The categories of evaluation were, number one, knowledge of the position. Number two is productivity. The third category was decision-making. The fourth category was oral communication. The fifth was written communication. The sixth was budget and financial administration. The seventh was leadership. The eighth category was public relations. The ninth category was work relationships. The 10th was staff development and training. The 11th was personnel practices. And then there was the overall composite score of those 11 categories. The average of the 5 selectmen's input on each category were as follows. Knowledge of the position, 3.6 out of a possible score of 4. Productivity was 2.9. Again, the maximum score in each category would be 4. Decision-making was 3. Oral communication rating was 3.4. Written communication rating was 3.2. Budget and financial administration was 3.5. Leadership rating was 2.9. Public relations rating was 3.1. Work relationships was 2.7. Staff development and training rating was 3.0, and personnel practices was 3.0. A total of 34.3, and divided by the 11 categories comes to a 3.12 average. The grading is as follows. If there was a score of 1, that would mean needs improvement. He did not get any scores of 1 in any of the categories. Number 2 would be satisfactory. And there were 2 scores in that category. In leadership, which was 2.9, in work relationships, 2.7. The third category was superior, and he got ratings in the superior range in knowledge of the position, decision-making, oral communications, written communications, budget and financial administration, public relations, staff development and training, and personnel practices. 4 is exceptional or outstanding, and there were no composite scores of 4, although there were some scores of 4 that were given by individual selectmen. But as I said, the scores that we're talking about here are average scores of the 5 board members. So, having given that overview, I ask if any of the selectmen want to make their own individual comments or assessments of Dan's performance overall, or particular items that are addressed on the evaluation. Norm?
I'd be more comfortable with Dan telling us what he thinks about the last.
Okay, let's start there. Dan, what do you think about the last year overall?
I think in general, we had a successful year by the general benchmarks that we would measure success in. Were there areas of improvement? There's no question that there are. We've had some significant delays in some, what I think are called important initiatives in the town, some related to personnel, some related to operations that I think I've expressed a certain amount of, displeasure with on my own end, and it's internal that we're working on and try to streamline. There's some constant area of improvement that we have been working diligently towards and hope to make better strides in technology, communications and media and things of this fashion. So we do listen to the direction the board gives us in those areas. We were thrown a little bit a curveball this year, middle of summertime, with the tornado. That was 2 tornadoes. That was all hands on deck, and certainly consumed a lot of staff time. I think, though, in general, when you look at some of the things that did move forward, I think we have a good comprehensive wastewater plan that spent a lot of staff time on. I think the DY negotiations, getting that to a point of stability, we can plan for the future. We had some great success with labor negotiations. It was a pretty harmonious event there. So I think I'm aware of some of the areas we need to improve in, and we're going to, that's why I kind of came out of the gate in 2020 with some permanent hires to get moving in that direction, including in my own office with a recent retirement of executive assistant, because we're so lean on the bench. When somebody goes down, it does impact the operation. But in general, I think I probably would have scored myself, if you're asking for scores, probably right around a 3 or so. So.
In terms of areas of improvement, what do you think are, going forward, the areas where you would like to see that advancement made in terms of these particular categories of things, or in terms of specific work projects?
I think, without question, modernization of information technology, that entire footprint, how we communicate, what's that look like in a post-cable TV era, bringing some directed leadership to the IT group. I think that is a top priority. I do know, sitting out there, that I didn't want to take on in the first half of this year, but I would address it in the second half, is the central dispatch concept. We've had an article out there to pay for some study on that, and we just don't have the bandwidth with wastewater. But I think right now, once we get through town meeting, we'll be in a better position to address that. So that's clearly one. The other one is just hiring, or the hiring process in general. We've spent, instead of rushing through, we've spent time better analyzing the process of refilling positions to ensure that in the past there might have been a scenario where somebody didn't quite meet the job description, but they got brought on anyways. And so we're not doing that anymore. We're trying to make sure that, to the degree possible, the job description and the hire coincide. If the job description, sometimes on these jobs, they've become vacant, we've had to go back, analyze it, and go in front of personnel board. So we've had a lot of meetings with personnel board on a lot of different job descriptions. They've been good to work with and appreciate where we're trying to go with that. And in the background to all of that is this enormous safety and health related obligation that we have now with OSHA that never actually goes away. We're trying to put people through a lot of training hours in the first half of this year. It's it's going to be a bit of a challenge to come up with the written program. So on a lot of different fronts, we're juggling things. On the good news front, though, we have almost $500,000 of energy conservation work going to go on. We've received our 2 electric cars and charger stations are up, so we're looking forward to getting those on the road and then getting into a better groove in that area. And we've also generated some significant grant money to better position the town for information technology into the future. So I think all in all, where we're at with staffing, we've done an excellent job going after and getting and securing resources. Although with the climate that we're in, we continue to lose people, not because they're looking for other opportunities. It's been just a lot of retirements. And that continues to put stress on the organization to go out, post a job, do a recruitment, and then do the interviews and get somebody on board. I think in the budgeting area, we were feeling really good about things until we got the Cape Tech assessment, and then that kind of blew a hole in the thing, so we got to go back and reassess that. But in general, to the extent possible, I think this has been, I never use the word easy, but this has been the least of the challenging years as it relates to moving objectives forward inside the budget policy that the Board of Selectmen have. I'm hoping with the DY assessment it comes back and we're able to manage that through. And I think across the way we managed an awful lot of mutual aid resources through town during the tornado activity, and I think we did that very expeditiously such that our cleanup costs were probably somewhere around $700,000 or so. And we were very good about ensuring that assets provided to us were put on the ground quickly in the right locations to make that work the best. So, and we continue to invest in the staff that we have. We have people, a couple of staff members right now going after their certificate program in leadership, which is going to be helpful. They're longtime staff members. They want to stay with the town, and that will help them developed as better leaders within the town as it relates.
Anyone else have any questions for Dan? Anyone have any comments on the performance rating, either in the general sense or in terms of one of the specific categories upon which we evaluated Dan?
Well, if I can just take a minute or two, obviously I agree with the overall assessment, and I appreciate Dan's report. One of the things that he did do that I think was very helpful for the board is he put together a memo to sort of outline sort of where we've been, and then to some degree laying out where we're going and getting us focused again a little bit more on goals. I know that's a subject that we've sort of been preoccupied with so many other things, but at some point, we need to revisit this. And I think to some degree the memo that Dan prepared for us sort of is a good starting point and a good reference point. We don't need to necessarily discuss these today, but I would recommend that we review what he's laid out for us very, very closely, and then sort of revisit the goals discussion with the board, and using, to some degree, this is another reference point in that dialogue and discussion with the board. I'm a believer that the administrator's success is often hand in hand in tandem with the board, that our goals, our objectives more or less need to mesh. And, we've discussed this before. What's critical is communication. And so I think both communication on matters small and then matters big. And I think at this point, if we're going to make the most out of this coming year, and I know sometimes it can be laborious, but I do think the more we can focus in on some of the goals that have been sort of in front of us, I think the better off we'll all be. And like I said, I thought this memo was very instructive. It was very helpful. Hopefully there's a way we can get this communicated to the public at large without having to, work their way through the arcane process of finding things on the website. But goals, I think that's just a priority at this point going forward.
If I may, Mr. Selectman, the goals, I think I've heard, we need improvements in reporting those out and in measuring the metrics. So I talked to the chairman the other day about a workshop after town meeting to spend some time to get the reporting format, because if we get that correctly done in the focus, then everything falls in place after that. And we've tried to, on top of all the other noise that's around us, stay connected to that document. But I do appreciate the sentiment of, like, how do you measure that we've made success somewhere? And there should be some way to do that. We need to give some thought to that. Some things are a little bit more obvious than others, for sure. But as a for instance, I know YPD, because it was reported to me today, they were in position to get a evidence room audit. Now, evidence room was a soft spot for them, and we've put a lot of energy into that. We've done some construction, and they had their first, what I'd call, review audit as it relates to their procedures. So that's something that's easily able to be measured as it relates to, because I have that as a particular goal with the chief, to ensure that our evidence custody is completely compliant with state law, as it should be. So getting us in a position to be ready for an audit, boy, that was, it took us a while. Now we've had an audit. Now we'll do the corrective actions. And the next time we go through that, I would hope that there would be no others. But it's taking some time to put that level of effort into some of the bigger goals that the board would like to see the departments achieve.
Thank you.
I had read that memo before, but I asked Mark just to slide it over for a minute so I could kind of refresh my memory on things. I think one of the challenges, too, that you put into the memo that you didn't address here today was the loss of our assistant town administrator. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, so I probably should apologize in advance to that gentleman. Chris brought a lot of innovative thinking to the town, and it certainly has been a loss on the community to not have him in the stall. That is no disrespect to Rich Benvin, who's done a fabulous job. They just have a bit of a different skill set and expertise in the area, but in many of the areas we were making really good headway in, Chris was a leader on those particular topics, and it was a refreshing perspective as it relates, because it challenged everybody in the organization to break from the traditional municipal mode on things. So would it be fair to say we miss Chris's presence every day in Town Hall? There's no question we do, and we're doing the best that we can to still bring that level of insight and energy into it, and the staff is got to be kind of reconfigured a little bit with some openings that we have to be able to not miss a beat in that area, but that certainly, it came as a bit of a surprise to me. I do understand his personal situation as it relates. I can totally appreciate that. But he was definitely somebody that made a big impact in a short amount of time here, in my own personal opinion.
Anyone else?
I guess I would, Dan, you hit upon a couple of things in your opening comment about, things that are moving forward. And I think we are moving forward well in a number of major areas. And give you credit for moving those ahead. I think certainly, in the last year, getting through the finish line with DY in terms of an agreement, that was a big thing, and I know you worked on that significantly. And the same thing with wastewater. I think we're moving that ahead. As painful as it may be at times, it's moving forward. And and I think everybody can pretty clearly see the key decision points, what needs to be decided, and the steps that need to be taken moving forward. I'm not sure that that's clear in some areas, though. I think sometimes there's communication that's not necessarily from you, but from other staff members with regard to delays that are occurring. And I know, just speaking from my perspective, sometimes I see those delays, but no expression of, okay, we're having a little problem here, but here's what the next steps are. We don't get that follow-through in terms of, okay, well, it's kind of like, okay, well, it's a delay, without the expression of, okay, here's what we're going to do. So, I certainly would encourage that going forward, that to every staff level, that type of communication needs to occur in terms of how we're going to move the ball forward.
Mark, do you have any remarks? Tracy? Mark, anything else?
I have nothing else to add, no, thank you.
Dan, you have anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the board. I think on a lot of fronts, the critiquing is well taken, and certainly we're always looking for ways to improve things for sure. And I appreciate that feedback, and together we make the town go, and we're going in some really good directions. And some of these have been Goliath-style projects, no question about it. And we couldn't have gotten as far as we are on these things without all of us tugging together with the town employees and the citizens being behind us at the town meetings that needed to go through. So personally, I have a great deal of satisfaction working with the staff and the board. And like I said, I think when you close the book on this section in history in the town of Yarmouth, we'll have made decisions in the last couple of years that will pay great dividends for the folks that come after us. Might not always remember the names, but certainly the impact. And with that being said, that's a testament to all the good work that's been done by the board today. So thank you for your support. Couldn't have done it without you. We've got a lot more stuff left to do, and I'm looking forward to getting 2020 to be as better than 19. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, we need to make an agenda item to vote on Dan's contract in public.
So what I was going to do with that is, like in normal contracts, we put those on the consent agenda, so I was going to have that appear at the 11th meeting, if that's okay.
I just want to make
All
sure
right.
we remember that we still have
Understood.
to do that.
Yeah, I did discuss that with Dan earlier. We didn't come to anything definitively, but he did remark, as he did a minute ago, that normally that's the way they handle it. They put it in the consent agenda. If anybody wants to take it out or comment on it, we can do so at that time. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.